Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. Just my microphone set up, and then we'll be good to go. Hope everyone had a great weekend so far and is looking forward to a slightly more unusual Write With Me Live. So, a little explanation. I woke up this morning and I was like, I don't feel like writing. And I thought, well, I know people join the Write With Me lives because they want to watch me write. So I'll just have to push through it and just write anyway. But then I was like 2 weeks ago, I released a video talking about writer's block strategies. And one of them was, both times, I don't suggest forcing yourself to write if you don't feel like writing. So I was like, well, maybe it's a little hypocritical of me to try to force myself to write when deep down, I really don't believe that that's the best strategy. Sorry, I'm just getting I think I've got the right microphone. Test. I think so. Okay, yeah. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to do a Write With Me live. I'm not going to force myself to write when I don't feel like writing, because unfortunately, that's just part of the writing process. Sometimes you wake up and you just don't feel like writing. But I still thought, well, we can still make this fun. We can still do this, something that you can take something away from, and maybe will help you next time you're struggling to write on a day that you feel like you should write, but just can't really put words down. So I thought I'd share a little bit more about how I come up with story ideas instead of just churning content out that I didn't really feel strongly about. This topic comes up in my YouTube questions a fair amount, just in various formats. Some people are like, well, what do you do if you run out of ideas? Where do you get your ideas from? How do you pick which idea is the best one to write about? So I want to talk about all of that today and just ideate some story ideas and maybe do some headline workshops. Okay, so I'll share. I have 3 places I normally look when it comes to coming up with story ideas. So, and as always, I know I normally do write and answer questions, but if you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and I will get to them when I come to a natural stopping point here. Right, so first things first. Well, to be honest, the number one place I get my story ideas from is Twitter, but then I was like, no, it wouldn't be super fun for people just to watch me scroll through Twitter for several hours while I try to come up with something interesting or fun to write about. So I thought, well, why don't we start a little closer to home? This is something I do when I want to write something that I hope will be attractive to readers on Medium, but still is something that I'm interested in writing about. A lot of people don't know that Medium, all the things you see here, when you scroll down, all of these recommendations here, they're based off of your reading history. Now, I tried to do this with one of my Patreon coachers who I coach, and he couldn't do it. So I don't know if maybe I'm in a beta of some kind, but if you go to your profile and you click Control Your Recommendations, you can actually clear your reading history. I try to do this as frequently as I can because one of the biggest stumbling blocks on Medium, especially if you're a new writer, is you read a lot about writing, and that makes Medium's algorithm think you only want to read about writing. And that means that everything that gets cropped up here is focused on writing. And then you, a writer, start to think, well, maybe if I want to be successful on Medium, I have to write about writing because that's all I ever seem to see on the homepage. And the truth is, it's just that Medium thinks that's what you want to see. So by controlling your recommendations, clearing your history, you give it a chance to kind of reset and look for something new. So what I'm trying to come up with a good idea that's going to be relatively interesting to readers on Medium. I look for stuff that comes up here that catches my attention. So I'm like, okay, so for example, this one's popular on Medium, but Kirsty Taylor, I'm sure, is a fantastic writer. I'm not that interested in this story today. So I look through and I'm like, which one of these is the most interesting to me? And I just have to keep looking. Sometimes this takes a couple of minutes to come up with something that I'm interested in. So like this, rogue, but interesting. So I might open this in a new tab. This sounds interesting. So I might open this in a new tab. And we'll come up with another one. Oh, I've seen these already. I think Medium's starting to duplicate some of the... Okay, this looks cool too, because you probably know I'm very interested. I'm currently writing a book, so it's relevant to me. So here's something about feminism, history and feminism. Here's something about side hustle. I'm super interested in, building my side hustle, although I call it my side hustle. My side hustle is now my full-time job. And then how to understand your reader. Learn from Amazon's most popular book titles. So what I'll normally do when I'm trying to come up with ideas is I know that this is, Medium recommended this to me because I'm interested in the topic of feminism, but I might read this and I might say, okay, well, what about the story do I like? What do I agree with? What do I disagree with? Can I turn this into a different article? Not copying from this author, Matilda the Dreamer, but just trying to come up with a different tangent or a different angle or something that this sparks in me. So I might look it through this and maybe I'll be like, well, what about, or I might wonder to myself, I don't know, who's the most popular feminist from the States? Like, who's the most popular US feminist from history? And, this will get me to a listicle, and I might look through Wikipedia's list of 16th, like, who the heck, a 16th century feminist? I didn't even think the concept existed back then. So we've got a proto-feminist from the 1500s. That's unreal. So you can already start seeing, I'm interested in this. And when you're interested in something, at least as a writer, that makes me kind of want to start writing about it. So I look at Jane, I'm just going to double check that you can still see what I'm looking at. Yeah, so Jane Anger, great. Scholars know virtually nothing about Jane Anger's life. So I just want to show you kind of what my thought process is happening right now. Scrolling up to the top, write a story. So I'm just going to start coming up with ideas. Jane Anger, title ideas. Why history forgot about the earliest feminist. Or, because like the fact that scholars don't know anything about her life, that in and of itself is a story. Why don't we? Why wasn't this more notable at the time? What do we know about her? Has this been pursued in modern times? If so, why? If not, why not? So I just want to clarify that was my process. I went from this very cool article looking at, Franca Viola. And then I was like, okay, well, this was the 1960s Sicily, but when did feminism, when did it start? Who was one of the first ones? And this took me to Jane Anger. And then I read a little bit about her Wikipedia page. And then I'm like, okay, questions start coming up. Okay, why do we not know anything about her? What prompted her to write this book? Why Jane Anger wrote the first ever I can't type today. Women's protection pamphlet. Or this is so interesting as well. The fact that even lacking traditional publication methods, how women got published without education in the 1500s. So, okay, none of these titles will probably make it to the final draft, but they're all ideas, they're all concepts, they're all thoughts and takes on Jane Anger and what I find interesting about her. How did she come to be? I'm so curious. Okay, so that is one of the ways that I start going through story ideas on, let me remove this real quick. So that's one of my methods for idea generation. I go to Medium, I clear my history, and I look through until I find something that catches my eye. I examine those ideas more closely, and I try to think of what inspires me about this article? What's interesting about this article? What's fun? What makes me want to write? Okay, so that's method number one, Medium. I'll go through and answer any questions that people have come through. Stephanie says, a lot of people feel this too. It's a great video topic. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Every writer knows, sometimes you just wake up and you're like, not today. Taylor asks, I've seen that you can publish the same post on Medium and your WordPress blog, but do you know if this is frowned upon by Google? Typically, yes. Google doesn't want to fill their search results with, posts that are the exact same story. So normally it will try to pick one or the other that it says, okay, this is the original post. This is the source of all truth. So on Medium, I'll show you how to do this real quick. Let's go to Medium. Let's say that I write a blog post on my blog about this, and I publish it, and then I cross post it onto Medium. If you go to more settings, advanced settings, and expand this, you can actually say this story was this story was published elsewhere, and you can say, oh, this originally came from myblog.com/cool story. You know, it's obviously not that URL, but something along those lines. And when you publish this, Google says, all right, cool. So when people search, what's a cool story about Jane Eyre, they'll point them to what they will consider the original source of truth, your blog post, not this Medium post. Hope that makes sense. All right. Where do you find quotes on a specific topic like be yourself? I don't understand this question. I guess I only very rarely use quotes in my writing. I know some other writers are very successful at doing it, but I'm not a quote writer or quote writer about quotes, or you know what I mean. So I would love more clarification on this question. Do you feel like more vague titles do worse when it comes to getting curated? There can't be too big a curiosity gap, but it also can't be too undescriptive when it comes to being curated. The perfect curated title isn't anything like, do this one thing to make your life perfect. Even though that's pretty vague, that would not be curated because it's too clickbaity and it's kind of garbage. But on the other hand, if you write something like on feminism, that probably won't be curated either because that title is super vague and doesn't really explain what the story is about, like on feminism, but what? So to get curated, you do have to be descriptive, but not create too big a curiosity gap. What were your stats in Hello Love? Were they better or worse than you would have gotten in PS I Love You? It's so impossible. Medium is not a great testing ground because you can't do proper A/B testing. I can't take the exact same story, publish it at the exact same time in Hello Love and PS I Love You and see which one performs better. I did not love my results from Hello Love, but it could have been that the story was bad, right? I've never written that story before. There were too many variables. And it's very possible that if I'd published it in PS I Love You, it would have done equally poorly. And add to that fact, Medium stats are acting unusually for a lot of writers I know who are not super happy with how their stories are performing compared to months or years past. So I don't know if they're better or worse than what I would have gotten in PS I Love You. I'm going to try again with Hello Love because I think it makes sense to try multiple experiments rather than jumping to conclusions from a single story. Okay, I'm going to carry on with option number 2. So I'll share my screen. So the second place I like to look, and I stole this idea from a guy called Sean Kernan. He's one of the best writers, I think. I know I love a lot of writing from a lot of different people, but there's some writing that stays with you. And Sean's one of those people who knows how to write a good story. And before he was big on Medium, he was really big on Quora. He learned how to write a gripping story by posting answers to Quora. So he started getting a lot of hits by writing stuff that he took from, or not took, but was inspired by from Quora. So I was like, well, Sean, if that works for you, why shouldn't it work for me? Maybe I can do that too. And in fact, one of my best performing stories, which was the psychological way to tell if you're being lied to, it got 30,000 views, which for me is very good. And I got that from Quora. So the reason I think of Quora as a really good way to get ideas is because it shows you what people are interested in an audience that isn't Medium and isn't tailored to your specific reading interests. And the way people write their answers tend to be really engaging, really exciting, and kind of informative. And you finish reading your answer and you're like, all right, that was actually pretty cool. So while I would never copy this title, I would be like, okay, well, some of these are interested. does one of, like, can I turn one of these into a story, you know? The issue with Quora, the downside, is that people frequently don't cite their sources. So I'll just look through here until I see something that's like, huh, what's going on here? Weird psychology tricks. So that's interesting. Like, that's a fun tactic. And I could think, all right, well, let's open up another Medium draft. Psychology hacks. So I might say, okay, how to politely interrupt someone without them noticing. Okay, the other thing when you deal with Quora is you have to be really, really careful to cite appropriately. So I want to, how do I share this? Can I say like that? Copy link. Because it's really hard to find stuff again when you've lost it, and you do not want to be plagiarizing, right? Like, I don't want to write something, a really cool story about this, and not say thank you to the person who answered this. So I could say, as Quora writer so-and-so says, this is a great suggestion for doing that. That's a fun one. I like that. And the mimicking one, that's a classic. The other challenge with Quora is sometimes these have been done to death. So you have to think of a really interesting and unique angle before, you know. You can write something that people will be interested in reading. That's a very weird, like, if this thing had a citation, I would be very interested in reading that. Oh my gosh, my mom has this. She calls it corpse flesh. When she goes running, like, her 2 fingers they just lose circulation and they turn a really horrible color. And then you do also have to be careful to avoid the promoted stuff. Like, I'm not interested in this. How to win an argument using psychology. That's a good, again, like, how to win an argument. By the way, I'm not precious about ideas. If you see one of these ideas and you're like, I bet I could write a really good story about that, go ahead. You have 100% my blessing. I really think it's not about, like, being the first to write about a topic. It's about writing it in a way that's interesting because you're the one writing it. So, like, if you won a really cool argument using psychology and you want to write about it, I would love to read it. So go for it. I don't own these titles or anything. Okay, so I can, and then this is the other thing, like, this author here, Christian Jerome, he actually cites a real person, and he's got quotes from her. That makes this a really good answer to pull from because it's got citations. So I can say, you know, Christian Jerome pointed me to this. He was talking about it on Quora, and I did some research and I learned more about Miriam Defensor Santiago myself. So yeah, Quora, what I do to get ideas from Quora is I make sure that I follow spaces that I think are going to be interesting and that I think I will be interested in. And then I just scroll until I literally see something that makes me want to click. And I'm like, when I see something that makes me want to click, that means that I'm interested enough that I will be able to write a good article about this. And then Yeah, this is interesting because I think health is, I'm a very like skinny woman. I exercise a lot. I was brought up to eat really healthy, and my parents are upper middle class, so we always had fresh fruit in the house. So I feel like when it comes to writing about health, a lot of what I write, I can't write from good scientific perspectives because all I have is my own experience. And sometimes that works really well, but I feel like for health, it's best to cite from actual sources. Like, see, I see this is a good example of why it's still good to do stuff like that, even when you think you might not write a story about this. So I think about meal prepping, and I'm like, almost all the stuff I see about meal prepping is positive, and I'm like, I actually don't like meal prepping. I think it's personally, I think it kind of robs the joy of eating, and I'm very much a person who loves to eat. So, the downsides to meal prepping. There's another article idea. Anyway, so yeah, so that's how I do it with Quora. I follow stuff, and then when I see something that makes me want to click, I'm like, wow, okay, I could turn that into a story. And I always, always, always make sure that I cite my sources, because it's once you click on something, it's very hard to find it again. I always make sure to copy the link. That's for those as well. Okay, so that's my second source. That's how I use Quora. Let me hop back and see if anybody has any questions. Does Newsbreak let you publish articles like literature? I'm not sure what Robin Roy means here. You can publish articles about literature on Newsbreak, I believe. There's no reason why not. How to add a draft or post a publication. I've actually covered this in a ton of videos. So if you Google how to submit to a publication, you'll see a ton of answers crop up. Some of them will be mine. I can't renew Medium membership by debit cards, and PayPal and Medium isn't helping me. What should I do? I'm from India. Unfortunately, I have zero knowledge in the world of payments coming from Medium. I'm not a tax lawyer. I'm not a financial lawyer. All I know how to do is write pretty well. So unfortunately, if Medium cannot help you, I probably will not be able to either. What story was the viral story from my short video from a couple of days ago? Oh yeah. So again, viral by my standards, right? So I'll show you my screen here. And it didn't go viral on Medium. It kind of did. It got picked up by a couple of external traffic sources. So yeah, this one, it got nearly 10,000 views in about a week, which was really, really cool. So you can see it did pretty well by Medium standards. Like 1,000 views per day is good, but the bulk of it came from outside of Medium. So I was very happy with that. And then you see how quickly it goes. Like today, even though it was viral on the 5th, a week later, it's only got 67 views. That's unfortunately the nature of virality. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Have you ever done a multi-part post? And if yes, how would you go about it? No, I haven't. Medium doesn't curate stories that don't stand alone, and I'm all about the Medium curation. But if I were, like say I wanted to write a fiction book, the way I would do this is, okay, it's a bit long-winded, so bear with me. I would create a publication, and I would post tons of single standalone articles in it about the thing that I thought would be interesting to the readers of the series I hoped to eventually publish. So if I wanted to write chapters of a book, I would write about stuff that would interest the readers of chapters of my book. So I would write like how to write a fiction book, or the top 10 tropes of rom-coms, or stuff like that. When my publication had enough followers that I didn't need to rely on curation, I would be able to publish parts as a part of a series, and I would be able to email my publication followers to say, hey, part 3 is up, check it out here. Even though it wouldn't be curated, I would still guarantee an audience. Do you have any advice on getting published by the startup? I submitted a draft 4 days ago and still haven't heard back. The startup, from what I understand, prioritizes taking stories that have already been published. So the way the startup works, as again, this is as far as I know, they basically go to the curation pages. So like say topic / I don't know, finance, is that a topic? All right, we'll do work instead. So they go, this page is full of articles that Medium has curated themselves into the work topic. And the startup goes through here and says, okay, Ted Bauer has published Recruit More Passive Candidates. Medium has already curated it. Why don't I click on this story and I'll just leave Ted Bauer a private note. So I would go, if I were the startup, this is what they do. They go here, they do that and they leave a private note. Hi, I'm from the startup. I would love to include this story in the startup publication. This means that they have a very high curation rate because they target stuff that's already been curated and they get a lot of views that way. But it also means that they neglect their draft submission queue. That wasn't advice so much as a rant. I guess my advice would be, if you haven't heard back from a publication, I would take it out and either workshop it to see if you can make it even more attractive to the publication you're trying to target, or try a different one. How to become a writer for Towards Data Science. They never replied to the website application. They asked for a resume on LinkedIn. I don't have one. So it sounds like you already know how to become a writer for data science. You do the website application and you do a resume on LinkedIn. I unfortunately won't be able to help a huge amount. I got added like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I think the process has changed since then. But if I were to start anew today, here's what I would do. Let's go. That was super weird. Thank you for bearing with me there. Let me share my screen again and let's try one more time. Okay. Right. I don't know what happened there. My whole Chrome shut down. It wasn't the internet for once. I will share my screen with you and explain what I would do if I were starting from scratch. I would Google how to submit towards data science. I would go here. And they wrote this back in 2016, so I'm guessing, oh, they updated it. Oh, no, I didn't need to click on that. They updated it December 2020. So let's scroll down to number 4, how to become a contributor. Did I scroll too far? Yeah. So I would use their form that they link to here. And if you're having an issue, try emailing them. And if they still haven't accepted you, it might be because they didn't like the article that you sent them. So you can try to send them another one and see if they like that one better. Okay. If you click the option of the article was originally published elsewhere on Medium, does Medium still promote it? It depends. So Medium's promotion comes through curation. So if they read your story and they're like, this is so good, people who are interested in pets will be interested in this story, even if they don't follow Robin. So they'll promote it to people who are interested in pets. If it is too old, like if you're importing a story that is months or years old, it will automatically not go through the curation process. It'll just skip it. So otherwise, if it's relatively new and it's well written and written to their standards, they will absolutely promote it, even if it's not original to Medium. I've had this happen. I mean, I cross-post a lot of my stories now, and I always get curated. Should I delete and rewrite stories that didn't get curated when I started writing on Medium? I think some of them can do really well. What do you think? Yeah, I think you should. But okay, huge caveat. Medium hates duplicate content. One of a really, really well-known relationship writer actually got suspended. I don't know if it was temporary or permanent. because she was repurposing content. Now, I don't know how much she was copy pasting and how much she was actually rewriting, but she did get smacked on the wrist pretty hard for not sticking to Medium's no duplicate content rule. But as you say, if you want to delete and then rewrite, like really, restructure, redraft, make significant, considerable changes to your draft, then absolutely republish, give that story a second chance to fly. I know, like, if you're anything like me, I got so much better at writing so fast in the first 6 months because I was just, the sheer quantity of repetition I was doing made me get better quickly. So if you're anything like me, some of the early stuff that you wrote might be pretty bad, and just looking at it again and rewriting it to your new standards will be enough that it will pass that no duplicate content rule and hopefully get the chance to be curated and really fly. Although, yeah, just make sure you delete the original one. Where do you live? I live in Georgia. How many stories do you have coming out this week? I have at least one. I think it's coming out in the Ascent tomorrow. I'm hoping to have a second one, more a political one. As I said, I live in Georgia where, before the whole Capitol thing happened, 2 Democratic senators got voted in, which is a really exciting moment for me. And I kind of wanted to write about that and what that meant for the state and a reflection on Stacey Abrams. So I'm hoping that's going to come out this week. And then I might get some freelance work that wants me to publish their stuff on Medium. So potentially up to 3. How to submit to lessons from history. Unfortunately, your best bet is Google. Just Google how to submit to lessons from history. That will be able to give you a much better answer than I could. All right. Oh, Taylor also in Georgia. Neat. Although I lived in Germany for a year, and when they were trying to send me, the family that I lived with tried to send me a package when I moved back here to Georgia, and they wrote my address, but they wrote Georgia at the bottom instead of the United States of America, and it took 3 months for the package to get here because it got sent to the country of Georgia instead of the state of Georgia. And I just imagine those postal workers at the country of Georgia being like, oh man, not another one. They sent it on to us free of charge, which is really nice, but really funny. Okay, so on to my third method. And this one is, I'm a little embarrassed to share this because I am going to have to I'm going to have to show you some pretty bad writing here. But it's worth it because y'all are worth it. Let me share my screen. Okay, so my third, when I have looked at Quora, I've looked at Medium's homepage, I've looked at Twitter, I go to Medium again, and I go to my stats, and I go to views. Oh, not views, sorry, date. And I wait for it to load. It takes forever because I recently found out that I've published 500 stories, which is pretty cool. The only reason I know this now is because Medium just changed. Here, actually, I want to show you this because it's pretty cool. So now, when you go to draft stories, they show you've published 500, you've done 464 whatever responses. So I've published 500 stories on Medium. Pretty awesome. Where was I? Yeah, so in reverse order, these are the stories that I wrote when I first came to Medium over 2 years ago. And when I really want an idea of what to do, you kind of hit on this by coincidence, Salman, is that I go to my older stories and I'm like, well, which one of these could I rewrite better? Which one of these deserves a second chance? And I look at all these and I mean, some of them did quite well back then. Like for only writing a couple stories on Medium, these were doing really well, getting to the thousands of views. This one didn't get curated because I forgot to write way. I wrote the only to get more engagement on Instagram instead of the only way. I don't even know what this is. The 4 scientific reasons what?
should get a cat. I wrote about my pets so much in those early days. What I wish I'd known before getting cats. That one did really well. It's surprisingly well. Oh, it's because a year after it got published, it got put in Tenderly, which is a Medium-owned publication. So yeah, I look through these and I look for stories that I'm like, you know, maybe those can be better. Maybe I can rewrite these to my current writing standards. Like, this is a really fun story. This is, I talked about the first time I went to a nude art class. You might know, if you've been to some of these before, you'll know that I love painting. Not very good at it, but love doing it. I love being artistic. It's a really fun way for me to spend my time. So I went to a nude art class and I met this guy. What was his name? It was like Dylan or Daryl or something. What was his name? Dylan, there it is. I bet I could turn this into another story. So I'll just go to write old story revamps. So I could talk about, let's see, what could I talk about? How I got back into art. How a naked man got me back into art. You know, something like that. Or I could do why being terrified is the key to revitalizing your creativity. You know, like, what's a new angle on this story? How can I bring this story to life in a different way, a different and better way? Because again, I wrote this, gosh, when did I write this? Oh, where did it go? Dang, I lost it. Anyway, you know, I wrote this like 2 years ago, and I'm a much better writer now, I hope. The most important trait for a successful relationship. And then some of these I read them and I'm like, no wonder that did so poorly, because everyone's writing the most important trait for a successful relationship. And you need to come up with a better, more specific to you angle. Here's how you can artificially, and then I know why this one didn't do very well. It's because this makes it sound like it's about relationships, when in fact, what I wanted to do was make it easier to stick to habits, like to stop backing down on promises. So I might take this one also, and I might say like, how to keep your promises to other people, or I don't know, like, it's not commitment. It's like how to stop. I don't know the right word for this. It's like, maybe a sip of tea will help me. Something like that. So using old stories is such a good way of coming up with new story ideas, especially on a day like today when you don't really feel like writing. And the reason it's so good is because you're plagiarizing yourself, which is 100% allowed, as long as you play by Medium's rules, you delete the old one, and you rewrite it in such a way that it's not just copy pasted, it's not just duplicate. But it's good because it gives you a chance to reflect on who you used to be as a writer, how you've improved, how the medium landscape has changed. And with hindsight, often you can say, okay, yeah, I know why that one didn't do as well as I'd hoped. Looking back, I know it's because the title wasn't right, or my introduction was too long and rambling, or, you know, the headline picture I chose was awful. And going through your old stories, it gives you a chance to give those older stories that were well written and they were a cool idea, obviously cool enough for you to want to write about it once. You can go back, give them a second chance, and let them have their day in the sun again. So those are my 3 methods: Quora, Medium homepage once you've cleared your recommendations, and your own old story ideas. But again, I have to say probably my most common one that I use is just browsing on Twitter. I just didn't want to subject y'all to like 15 minutes of me just scrolling on my timeline because I thought that would be pretty boring. But Yeah. All right. So I'll answer some more questions and then I will log off for the day because I'm knackered and yeah, this has been fun. Where was I? Slimes wants to know if we're allowed to ask questions. Yes, ask away. Reginald got kicked out of a publication for breaking their rules, and I felt terrible. I really want to write for this publication again, and I don't know how. Reginald, I'm afraid I also don't know how. Without knowing the publication that you got kicked out of and what rule you broke, what I would do is just show renewed commitment to that publication. If it's one that you really like and you really respect and honor them, then I see no reason for you to continue trying, but without being, obnoxious to them. So make sure that what you're writing, even if you're not submitting it to them, make sure you're writing stuff that meets that publication's sort of guidelines and criteria. Whatever rule you broke, I don't know which rule, but hopefully you have learned from your mistake and you won't do it again and don't continue to not do it. Yeah, I don't know. That's a shame. I'm sorry to hear that. When do you usually find out if your story has been curated? Marie likes books. I normally find out within a couple hours. I know other writers, especially if you're newer on Medium, it takes you a little while longer. I suspect this is because I've written enough that Medium knows I know how to write well, and they have some kind of automated process where if you have been curated X number of times, you get to move through the queue faster because they're like, all right, we're pretty sure that what she's written is curatable. Newer writers often have to wait days or I think up to like 2 weeks to find out if they're curated, but there's no guarantee. Any alternative to Publish House? It depends what you want Publish House for. Like there are so many publications on Medium. There's no one that's exactly like Publish House because they're unique in what they do. I guess it just makes sense to think about what you want to write for and how you can meet that and which publication adheres most closely to your vision for your writing. I just bought R. Lee Payton's course and I read that you did too. I didn't buy his course. I interviewed him on YouTube. I have not purchased his course, but he's a stand-up guy and he has a lot of information to give. He was very valuable. When I interviewed him, he shared a ton of information and tips. Which of his marketing distribution tactics has been the most effective for you? Yeah, I have no idea what his marketing or distribution tactics are because I haven't taken his course, so I do not know. Sorry. All right, so I think that's all kind of on the questions. Thank you all for bearing with me. I know this day you were hoping for a Write With Me live, but I'm sure you understand. Some days the words aren't going to come out. And I hope that this was still useful for you in thinking of ways to come up with ideas and how to use your time effectively and still profitably, even if you don't really feel like writing. So I'm going to go make myself another cup of tea and enjoy the rest of my Sunday. And I hope you do as well. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll see you all next Sunday. Bye.